welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host, Justin Baker, has been waiting patiently for my fucking computer to start working. And here we go. Hi, Justin.
Computers. Yeah. Technology.
Computers, yeah. Yeah, what the heck? I've been using the same computer to record every single podcast episode we've done, I think. Barring maybe like one or two episodes that I did on my laptop once. I think when I first moved into the new house. But anyways, everything's good. Technology, it's still our friend. I didn't like break the monitor, or those like great early on YouTube videos where it was like some fat guy in his office just getting pissed at his keyboard and his computer, and he like picks the keyboard up and starts to smash his old VGA huge monitor that was probably like 17 inches, but weighed 300 pounds. You know what I'm talking about,
bro? Do I?
Yeah, those were I remember my dad bought a 19-inch monitor like that. It was huge. Like, you had to have two people carry that thing out, and you also had to have a good 2-foot clearance from the wall on your desk because the back was so big. Oh. But anyways, we're here to talk about hockey, aren't we?
I guess
that's where we're going. So I think we should we got to start with, I know it's been a week, and in that week the Leafs have fired their GM Kyle Dubas. It has been talked about and beaten to death before we get here. So now we have the privilege of just coming at it after the fact, completely after the fact now, 1 week out. I'm going to let you jump in first. I feel like maybe you're a little bit more of the unbiased observer. And then I'll give you my thoughts after I hear what you have to say about Kyle Dubas no longer being the general manager of the Maple Leafs.
Boy, part of me, so I'm split on the way I feel about Kyle Dubas and his tenure there, right? I think on one hand, he had star talent. But it was kind of a double-edged sword, right? He had these star players, over the last few years, but because they were star players, the cap hit was so high on all these guys. He literally had barely any wiggle room to make moves and bring in, other talent to help. How about the core fours, you want to call them? And so, yeah, on one hand, I feel bad for the guy because, again, he didn't have the cap room to go out and make big moves and to bring in pieces and, really round out this roster. I think the way, in my mind, I think the way it should be. But at the same time, I don't feel bad for him because he had such star power and he couldn't get it done. Right. And so when you look at teams like Tampa, you look at teams like Chicago back in the, 2010s, how they were able to basically draft well, round out their bottom six because they had up and coming youngsters that were just, cheap cap hits. They could go in and, provide depth scoring from the bottom six and, get good goaltending, all this other crap that Dubas, was trying to accomplish. He gave it, I got to applaud him for his effort. I think he did a pretty bang up job for what you had an on ice product. Look, they were at the top of the division almost every year he was in there. They were a playoff contender every year. Now, again, he's not a player. He doesn't get to go in there. He doesn't, get to play on the ice and perform, right? So he brings the guys, he brings in the coaches, and just ultimately they have to perform. And so, when it comes to crunch time, guys don't perform. It's easy to fire the coach. It's easy to fire the GM. Blame it on them because you can't move the players as easily. And so, ultimately he was a casualty of a team that finally got past, into the second round. And, obviously there's some changes that need to happen for this team to get to the next level. And, Shanahan, I guess, I don't know if he's trying to save his job by letting Dubas go, but, in my opinion, I guess the one thing you got to look at is what's the plan B? What is the next step? Are they going to find, can they find somebody better than Dubas to come in and shake this roster up? Because if you wanted just a straight shakeup, if you're Shanahan, you could literally come in and say, you know what? Hey, we need to trade a big name guy. We need to trade one of the core four. We need to shake things up a little bit. That's what I want. But, hey, it is what it is. And it's easier to fire a guy and save your job, I guess, if you're Shanny. So,
yeah, I'll say, I think that when it comes to Dubas, that Monday press conference was just so weird. him coming out and kind of saying like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to, like, I'm not sure I have to talk to my family. Like, it was very like doom and gloom, and it was just very odd. And I mean, I think if I saw that too and I'm Shanahan, I'd be like, ugh, I don't like, it's totally fine to feel the way that he does, but he shouldn't have said that. He just shouldn't have said that. He didn't need to talk about that at all. He didn't, like, here you are trying to say that your family is the reason that you're debating whether or not to do this. And it's been so hard on your family to deal with being the GM. And yet you're telling everybody your family's business.
No, like, I'll give you that, because so here's the thing about that. I mean, if you save that kind of shit for when you get fired, and you can come out and say, well, you know what, ultimately, you know, we decided to part ways because my family and I just, you know, it's been hard on my family, so we just want a fresh start somewhere else, or whatever. You don't say that before you get canned. I mean, that's just, you just don't.
Publicly. Like, it would be fine to go to, you know, if you went to Shanahan solo, one-on-one, and you said that, okay, fine. And then you can, like, hey, I just need a few days to clear my head. Like, don't, you just, I don't know. It just wasn't, you know what it sort of was? It's that mistake of trusting your employer more than you should. Like, your employer, like, you work for them. They want to know, what do they care about? They want to know that you can do the job. And when you go to your employer and you're too honest, sometimes, especially when there's tension already, that might be the green light for your employer to go, nah, we can find someone else who wants to do this kind of thing. Like, I'm just always of the mindset that, like, your employer will drop you at any point. There's no reason to give your employer more than they need to know. And, like, in this case, that they didn't need to know that. It was Dubas's family business, and I think he mistakenly was just too honest. Like, it's the statement of, like, truly he was honest to a fault in that moment. And I mean, from a reporting, from like a podcast standpoint, it's really cool that he shared all that. And then Shanahan is like, all right, let me take you through my diary and tell you all exactly at 1:08, I received an email from Kyle. And at 3:57, that's when I had a dream that we were going to fire him and the Leafs would win the cup. Like, it was all weird. It all kind of felt a little petty on his part. That was the thing that I really didn't like from Shanahan, was the, like, why are you sharing all these little details about this? Like, just say, you know, after that press conference, it made me doubt what was going on, and I just ultimately decided that I needed to have somebody that wasn't going to waver. And this is going to be a 5-year commitment. Like, this isn't like, hey, you want to come back for a year? It's 5 years. So it's fair if somebody's having doubts, like, and you're not into that, you know, like he said, hey, we all have families. This is hard on all our families. And I would say that is likely true. Like, it's not necessarily fair to go, well, it's so hard on my family. Well, yeah, it's probably hard on almost anyone's family who has any public face of the Maple Leafs. That just is what it is. It's why people don't want to go there. And it's why some sociopaths want to play there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's a tough market to play in. And those kind of comments, I mean, I get it. You know, it's probably very taxing being the GM of Toronto, especially when you have that kind of talent and the expectations are so high for that team, right? That emotionally it's got to be draining. I mean, I always think of it, and I don't know if maybe this is the right comparison, but like, I look at pictures when you look at those pictures of presidents before they got in the office and after, how much they've aged, right? And like how taxing it is emotionally and physically. I imagine the same thing. Like, you could probably go back and look at a picture of Dubas, 5 years ago, and look at him now, and you could be like, man, that guy's aged a good 10 years in the last 3 years. I mean, in that kind of market, it's got to be tough for sure. So, you got to give him a little bit of cred for being there as long as he did, but at the same time, it's like, you got to keep that shit bottled up. You can't come out and talk about that.
That's why you get a therapist. And now it looks like he's the front runner for Pittsburgh's job, and we'll see if he stands true to what he said about, it's I'm not going anywhere else. It's Toronto or bust. I just lean on like that whole press conference was kind of maybe more or less a negotiation tactic, and like maybe he didn't do it on purpose, but it sort of maybe subconsciously was some kind of like, I'm not going to go anywhere, and wanted them like to kind of force their hand to make it so that he couldn't go anywhere. And I don't know. It felt weird. It just felt kind of manipulative.
Yeah, to me, it feels like he's basically sending a message out that says, hey, if I'm not in Toronto, I'm not going to go to Columbus. I'm not going to go to Arizona. I'm not going to go to these teams that are rebuilding, right? I'm going to go to a team that's winning now. Like that's where I need to be.
Well, he said it's either going to be Toronto or I'm going to go home for the year. So,
yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. And then he'll say, well, I mean, that was before I changed my mind. And,
I talked to ownership, and they really convinced me and sold me on this plan of theirs. And
right. I didn't ever think they would fire me. So how was I thinking? But anyway, so the Leafs GM search is on. We know, potentially there's going to be a million names. I don't even think it's worth dropping names at this point. I know like Brad Treliving's been put out there. He's kind of the like one that is very glaring. Mark Bergevin's out there, but I think there's going to be so many people coming out of the woodwork for this job. I mean, this is one of the premier jobs in all of hockey. General manager of the Maple Leafs. So it'll be interesting to again see what sociopath wants the job. But the Calgary Flames hired a general manager. It is Craig Conroy, former Calgary Flame. I think he played for Calgary twice. I think he played for Calgary. He left, signed with LA, and then was traded back because everyone was just like, bro, you need to just go back to Calgary. And now he's the GM of the Flames. I guess the best place to start, because I'm not super familiar with him from like a management standpoint, but I want to talk about like, what do you think his first moves are going to be? How's he going to shake this team up?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you've got to look at the lineup that he's got to work with, right? And I think, gosh, what did he come out and say at his press conference? Like, we're not going to have another, Johnny Gaudreau happen. And the minute he said that, I instantly thought of, a couple players, Elias Lindholm and Michael Backlund, right? So those are two guys that I think are core leaders of this team now. Again, Backlund, not from an offensive standpoint, but again, from a leadership standpoint,
right?
Is super important in that locker room. I know there's a lot of guys in there that respect him. I mean, hell, he even came out and said that they were going to name a captain for next season for sure. And already everybody's just like, Michael Backlund's the guy, right? That's who it's probably going to be. But again, you got to sign these guys, right? And you would hate it if you're losing Elias Lindholm at 28 years old. He's a UFA this offseason. So you would hate if you lose this guy for essentially nothing next offseason.
I think that's what he's saying. He's saying like either we're going to be trading him or he's going to sign a long-term deal.
Well, I think by saying we're not going to have another Gaudreau situation, right. I would lean towards that absolutely. So to me, I think it's probably going to be, they're going to sign him because, what are you going to get in return that's of equal value? Probably nothing. No. And you don't have another center coming up. So
well, and you're not looking to rebuild if you're the Flames. Like you've got a 29-year-old Huberdeau about to be paid $10 million a year for the next 8 years, right? 8 years. Yeah. So, yeah, and then Kadri, 32, making $7 million. This is a team that needs to win today. Like they can't afford to miss the playoffs. They just have, they're in win now mode.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, obviously they got to go find the coach, right? So I think when you talk about shakeup, that's where it's going to start for me. Bring in a coach because you want to find somebody who can unlock Huberdeau's potential. You saw how underperforming he was this season. And same with Kadri. Kadri was okay, but I expected more out of him. And I think you got to find a way to unlock these two guys and get the most out of them right now. I mean, I'm not saying go out and get a Tortorella type coach who's very disciplined, but maybe go get a Gerard Gallant, somebody who is familiar with Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, from his time in Florida. And he's definitely a player-friendly coach, a guy who I think, is quite the opposite of a Suter.
Yep. Yeah. He's the one that 100% comes to my mind that I don't know what the Flames are thinking, but it makes a lot of sense. And Florida won the President's Trophy and had a big turnaround season the year that he was their coach. I know he was, 12 games in, he wasn't the coach, or he became the coach. He goes to New Jersey, and New Jersey has a big turnaround, and they make the playoffs. This guy is, everything he's touching right now is kind of turning to magic. So I think it behooves the Flames to go out and go after this guy if he's willing to go to Calgary. To me, he's the number one target. You have to get Huberdeau going, and he knows him pretty darn well.
Right. And then from a player standpoint, if you're trying to shake up this roster, first thing you got to do from a GM for Conroy here is make some cap space, right? They don't have much for next season. They've only got projected $1.25 million right now, assuming that the cap only goes up $1 million. So
are you looking to trade Markstrom?
I'm not going to trade Markstrom yet because I still think you've got a lot of potential there. I mean, you've got a guy who, don't get me wrong. I think, Dustin Wolf probably, I think, is ready to come into the NHL. Is he ready to be a starter? No, maybe not. I mean, he's 22 years old, so I don't want to rush him, especially because, again, Markstrom's he was great in Vancouver, great in Calgary when he first got in there. So he had a bad year last year, but so did a lot of the other players in Calgary too, compared to the last couple seasons.
That's a good point. He did have a bad year, but my worry is that he had a bad year on a team that was very focused defensively.
Sure, yeah.
What's going to happen when you bring in somebody who opens it up a little bit and you need to make some big saves? Maybe he plays better in that environment anyways. I don't know. Yeah,
he might be. But to me, I'm looking at guys like Christopher Tanev, Nikita Zadorov, those defensemen who maybe aren't going to get, Mackenzie Weegar, Noah Hannafin are going to be your guys, Rasmus Anderson. Those are your top three, in my opinion. And Tanev's right there at number 4, maybe number 3. But, again, teams are going to line up for a guy like Christopher Tanev. So that's an easy way to clear $4.5 million. And,
it's true.
Maybe looking at, I don't know, maybe Mangiapane too. I know he had a good season in retrospect, so maybe you can offload his cap hit. But that's the one thing I think they need to do more than anything besides find a coach is make a little cap space.
Okay. I do wonder when it comes to the Flames, like obviously you can't tear this down, but maybe you go, well, maybe we take a slight step backwards next year in order to take a bigger step forward the following year. That could, like, you've got that kind of a 1 year grace period if you're Craig Conroy to maybe be able to get rid of some more anchoring contracts. Like, how would we feel if Blake Coleman was dealt? And
I think he needs to go.
He brings something to the table. It's not as if he's just god awful or anything. He wasn't a bad player, but 38 points for $5 million is just, it's slightly below where you want him to be. I think you can probably find a team who's willing to play ball. I know he's got 4 years left on that deal. That's
the problem for me.
Yeah,
maybe
tough.
if you can eat $1 million of that, I think you could probably find a team that would be willing to take him on.
Yeah,
at 3.9.
Yeah,
but do you want to eat $1 million?
Yeah, do you want to eat $1 million, or do you just want to have Blake Coleman and hope he has kind of maybe a bounce back year? The other side of it is you just got to get in the playoffs, and then Blake Coleman's a pretty useful guy.
Right, absolutely.
That's there too. Yeah, and it'll be, do they bring back like a Lucic, Trevor Lewis? I would think that those guys are going to be gone. Although Lucic seemed to find a home a little bit, but maybe that was just on the Daryl Sutter team, and that like with a faster team, this team does need to get faster, and he's probably not on that list of guys to help you get faster.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? Should we talk about these series going on right now and then jump back into news at the end?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Which series do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the one going on tonight, right now, the Florida Panthers and Hurricane.
Yeah. We're recording this at 9:22. We're being awful people recording an NHL podcast during a game. Right now it's 2-2 in the middle of the second period, so it's been a good one so far. But shoot, Carolina's got to win. I guess we'll know very shortly who, if Carolina is going to keep on playing. But my goodness, I'm up by 1 point in our pool, and we both picked complete opposite teams. I have the Hurricanes and the Stars, and Justin has the Golden Knights and the Panthers. And I'm pretty sure you're going to take this one. I think you've got it pretty locked up.
Yeah, I don't think, though, I'm going to win with the amount of games here. I don't think Carolina's going to stretch this to 7 or Dallas to 6.
No, probably not.
Probably not. But at least if I get both the correct teams, at least I'll be up a point then at this point.
Yeah,
and
then I basically have to just pick the opposite of you in the finals.
Yeah, you're forcing your hand.
It's about my only hope.
Well, I'll tell you now, I'm going to pick Vegas because, let's face it, at the beginning of the playoffs, I picked Vegas and the Rangers to go. Clearly, the Rangers let me down. They were my Stanley Cup pick, but I still got Vegas, I guess.
Yeah, I'm at least, the Panthers. This is what I was thinking about this. You know what? Last year, I picked against the Lightning every single round until the Stanley Cup Finals. Then I was like, I got to stop picking against them. And then they lost. So I'm like, if I pick the Panthers, then they'll lose. If I don't, then they'll probably go ahead and win. So those teams
you might be onto something.
Those teams from Florida get me good. What are your thoughts on this on Jamie Benn's suspension and what happened last night? The cross check.
Yeah, it was just plain stupid. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, you're down. You're down in the series 2-0. Mark Stone has been shutting down your top guys this whole entire series. I mean, this whole Vegas team has played very, very well defensively. I know that Dallas has outshot them a lot of nights, especially last night's game. But Vegas, what they've done very well is taking away those high danger chances and those second and third chances that teams usually capitalize on. Adin Hill has stepped in and he's looked very good. So no, I'm not trying to shortchange him at all, but I think as a whole, this team has done a very good job. And so you could see why guys like Jamie Benn are a little frustrated. And so when you're frustrated, when you're just not producing offensively, the first thing teams usually do, especially in the playoffs, is they try to, get a little bit more physical and, introduce that sandpaper into the series and hopefully try to change the fortunes of your team just a little bit by winning those little battles there. And, obviously Mark Stone has been a thorn in the Dallas Stars sides this whole entire series. You're down 1-0 already in this game. So you're already, I hate to say it, they're probably pissed.
And they're losing. You're just having so much trouble scoring.
Right. And so, of course you're like, what, I'm going to go ahead and take a shot at this guy. We know he's got a bad back. I'm just going to find any way I can to maybe just take a shot at him and maybe take, one of their top players out of the series. And of course he goes down, and then what does Jamie Benn do? Just go right after the face. I mean, I'm sure maybe he didn't intentionally mean to go after the face. It just happened, but it's just a stupid play.
The initial hit, though, like Jamie Benn's coming up to his own blue line, and he goes dump the puck out. And the initial hit, I mean, Stone was kind of playing on him, and I didn't really have a problem with what he did initially.
No,
to knock over Stone. It was just like, dude, you would have been better off dropping your stick and punching him once in the face. You probably would have gotten a roughing penalty, and that'd be that. But because you held the twig in your hand, you're probably done for the year, unless your team can, really pull off something. Like Dallas just, there's some series where I would say the Leafs series against the Panthers, they were down 3-0. But I don't think anyone would have been super surprised if the Leafs came and won a few games in that series. I know they only won the one, but the Leafs were never out of any of those games. They lost a couple in overtime, and they were all close games. So I don't think it would have surprised if. But in this one, that's I'm going to be shocked if Dallas wins more than one game in this series, because they just do not look capable against the Knights. And it kind of is that slow start that we've seen in every series for the Stars so far. But the difference is that the Stars have been able to take at least one of those first three games, and this time around they have not. And I think 3-0 is, I know teams have come back before, but it's like saying, someone scored 3 goals in 28 seconds one time. That's like, it's not gonna happen. It happened once, and it's fluky. It would take so many lucky things happening to even come back and tie that series at 3. I just don't see it happening at this stage of the game. No,
and at the end of the game, towards that end of that second period there, you saw with Max Domi, right? I mean, they had to end the period a little early. It's clear that Vegas is in the Dallas Stars players' heads, right? I mean, hey, he gets up, he basically laughing, throwing him a thumbs up, which it was the greatest thing ever. And so, I mean, it's clear that, Dallas is frustrated, and they're looking for answers, and they don't have any right now. And so, I mean, again, I don't put any of this on coaching at all for Dallas. I think it's just, sometimes, you're just outmanned, outplayed, and outcoached, and Vegas is just doing a much better job of shutting down Dallas at this point.
Do we think maybe Ottinger's hurt?
It wouldn't shock me, right? He definitely doesn't look like his former self, his regular season self. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see Wedgwood start game 4 to come in, because again, you need something, you need a change of something, right? And Wedgwood, looked good when he came in. I mean, granted, Vegas wasn't trying to take it to him at any point, but just you got to do something to create a spark here, and changing a goaltender is the easy way to do it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, at this point, you don't have anything to lose,
right?
Which, by the way, neither do the Carolina Hurricanes, because they're now losing. We're allowed to say this because we're not watching it. You're not listening to this live. If people were listening to us live, we wouldn't be allowed to talk about the score of the game. It's really weird. Not that anybody would really care. Okay, let's jump back over to that series. The Panthers and the Hurricanes. Obviously, the results of Game 4, whereas we don't right now while we're recording this. But regardless of the outcome of that series, what have we learned in this series?
I've learned that Bobrovsky is worth every bit of $10 million right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. Would you? Here's an interesting thought. Would you be willing to pay a goalie $10 million for 7 years? If you knew that in one of those 7 years, he would take you to the Stanley Cup Finals, like single-handedly, practically.
Well, if you won the Stanley Cup, yes. Go to the Stanley Cup Finals? Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, but so
we'll find out, I guess, if that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Los Angeles Rams, right, when they won their Super Bowl championship a couple of years ago, right? It's because they gave up everything, right? They bet the farm to win it all, and they ended up winning it, right? And so, again, if you had to dump all your draft picks, if you had to dump all your cap hit on one single guy and he took you to the finals and you ended up winning, absolutely it's worth every single bit of that. Yeah. But that's what we'll have to wait and see, right? Does Florida bring home that ultimate prize?
Now, do you think that for Bobrovsky that this is like, are we just seeing kind of a really great goalie, a goalie who's had a tremendous career and is probably just having the greatest 20-game stretch of his career, or maybe not even of his career, but maybe of the last what year did he win the Vezina? He won the Vezina in like 2014. I think it was 2014, right? When he won the Vezina?
You might be right.
I guess in 2016-17 he had a .931 save percentage. So he had a that's really the last time he was utterly dominant. The next year .921. But the year that he left Columbus, he had a good year. Like that's the one year where he won a playoff series. And then the first year with Florida was terrible. The second year was palpable. And then, last year was decent. He's just been so up and down. I mean, it's just hard to pin on. It seemed like he was kind of done, at least being an elite goalie.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? We all thought his days of being an elite goaltender were behind him. Now again, we're seeing shades of that eliteness coming back, right? What made him so great? Because at 34, really, for a goaltender, unless you're one of the greats, you're pretty much on your way out.
Unless you're Tim Thomas.
Right. Yeah. Your Tim Thomas or Marc-Andre Fleury, right? I think pretty much, once you hit that mid to late 30s there, you're, relegated to backup status. But, yeah, I mean, we're seeing what made him that 2-time Vezina winner basically right now is what it is. He's taking over games. He's shutting teams down. He looks so solid in the net.
Just positionally, he's just unbelievable right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at the way he anticipates plays so well too. It's mind-boggling. Like that, I don't know if you remember that blocker save. He moved left to right and literally threw his stick to the corner of the ice that he shut down Sebastian Aho.
Yep.
That was just pure anticipation and knowing what was coming, and just that hockey IQ just came through so well on that play, where I think most other goaltenders, wouldn't have been able to read that so well. And again, it's just those little plays, those little things that he's doing so well right now, and that he's doing them basically when we thought he was behind as far as, being that elite goaltender. It's just what's really, between him and Tkachuk, I think it's taken this Florida team, I mean, all the way here so far. So, yeah,
it's, I mean, he's found a way. He has certainly found a way, and it's been pretty exciting to watch. I mean, they beat my team, so I wasn't happy about that, but he's been so good. I mean, when your team gets 17 shots on goal and you win 1-0, your immediate thought is, okay, what did the goalie do?
Right.
And he was spectacular. Well, it sure seems like it's going to be a Panthers Golden Knights final, which will be a very interesting. We'll break all that down in the end. We'll break it down once it actually happens. But let's assume the Hurricanes and the Stars are out of it. Any big changes that you would make for those teams, or are those teams just kind of in their natural progression?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think again, the one big thing for Carolina that we're seeing they're missing, they need that elite goal scorer, right? I mean, obviously Pacioretty was supposed to be that, and not having Svechnikov is clearly hurting them, because especially when you get a little bit more physical, when you have that grind out kind of hockey, right? A power forward like Svechnikov comes in handy so well. So, for me, I think they're going to obviously try to get healthy. I don't think Carolina's going to do too much in the offseason. You just have to get a goaltender signed. But for me, if you can find a way to get some cap space to maybe bring in, a second line goal scorer, a guy who can, provide you with a little scoring, maybe like, for example, like a Tyler Toffoli, who's a guy around, $4.5 million, but can chip in and produce, when needed to, right? Just, can give you those big time goals when when the rest of your team's struggling. That's what I think, Carolina's really missing. Now, as far as, the Dallas Stars are concerned, I don't really think that they're going to do a whole lot. I mean, obviously you've got Pavelski signed for another year. You've got your core guys of, Robertson, Rupe Hintz re-signed. So obviously I think they're just going to try to find some, I guess value pieces for their third and fourth line, and hope that guys like Ty Dellandrea, their younger players, Wyatt Johnston, just take the next step and, continue to evolve into better players to eventually take over. And then, again, you can maybe take this team to the next level. And assuming that, again, Ottinger plays like his normal self,
sure,
and, not this poor type of play.
I think he's got to be hurt. That would be my guess, but
probably.
Yeah, I think that between the two teams, Dallas is definitely the team that is they're on the rise. Like, they're just kind of finding their groove. I hope they re-sign Max Domi. It looks like he's found a home there. And I think you're right. Like, their young players are only going to get better. I think Jason Robertson is going to continue to grow. And same with Rupe Hintz. Like, this team has a higher ceiling than what we're even seeing now. Carolina, I look up and down their roster. I mean, they're still young, right? Like, Aho's only 25. It's hard to believe Aho's only 25. I feel like he's been in the league for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Slavin's still, he's 29. Brent Burns, he's getting there, but maybe he's the ageless wonder that he's the next like super old guy that's going to just keep on being really good. But what are they going to do in goal? And in goal, is who do they bring back between Ranta and Anderson to play 1A 1B with Kochetkov? I wonder. Answer me. Okay, you're Max Pacioretty. Do you feel like you sort of owe it to the Hurricanes to sign a new deal there?
I don't know necessarily if you owe it to the Hurricanes, but for me, I would owe it to myself to see what I could have done, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you were there, you played 5 games. Like, they traded for you, they believed in you. You know, I think everything was there. I think he would have fit their system really well, and that, like, they were willing to obviously give him an opportunity. And I wonder if he'll come back on maybe a 1 or a 2 year deal, not at a $7 million cap hit, but if Carolina
I think $1.5-2 million for a guy like that.
$1.5 million.
Yeah, because I think Pacioretty's going to get out there and find the market's very bare for a guy like him who has such a terrible injury history.
Yeah,
that it's going to scare teams off long-term deals. And so for me, if you want to, maybe $2.5 million tops is what I would give a guy like him on a 1 year deal. Go out, stay healthy, prove you still got it, and then you can sign him to a 2, maybe 3 year deal after that.
Yeah, I mean, he's 34. Yeah, once after this year, once you sign him, then you don't want to probably sign him for more than a 1 year deal because you don't want to be stuck with that contract afterwards if he retires because of an injury. Like, I could see though, maybe a team like the Blues, the Avalanche, like maybe throwing a little bit of money. The Avalanche are going to have some money because of Landeskog still being on LTIR. Like they're going to have some money to work with, and I wonder if he might be a fit there. Just somebody who you just need to come here and score. Like, you don't need to be the guy at all. You don't even need to be the top scorer or anything. We just need you to chip in offensively. I think he could maybe do that in like that low pressure kind of way. Maybe that Carolina system is more intimidating than what Pacioretty wants to get into. I could also see that. Like, I'm sure Rod Brind'Amour, he's bringing, giving guys new leases on their career essentially, and like turning what I would say someone like Aho, who would be probably a really good second line center. He's turned Aho into a superstar in his system. He's an absolute superstar in his system. I think making him better than what he would have been had he just maybe been with another head coach. But it'll be interesting to see what Carolina does long term there with Pacioretty.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, if it was me, because you do have the Carolina Hurricanes are going to have $24 million, and I know you got to go get another goaltender. You've got to sign a couple depth pieces here and there and re-sign a couple guys, but I would honestly go after a guy like Alex DeBrincat and see if you can't convince him to come in there and you sign him long term, to maybe $8 million, whatever, but because I don't think he's signing in Ottawa. So maybe you bring in a guy who maybe had a little bit of a down year. You could take advantage of that and send a little less to Ottawa to bring him over. And then
he's an RFA.
Right. But what I'm saying is you make that trade with Ottawa,
trade,
right?
Okay.
So so you bring him in and then you can get him signed to that deal. And then you get a guy who's a former 40 goal scorer who maybe comes in and finds, his old scoring touch there in Carolina. So
yeah, tack back on a healthy Svechnikov too, and you're in a pretty good place. Okay, well, I think I want to go watch the hockey game that's actually on.
Yeah, I don't blame you because I kind of do too.
And we'll reconvene and we'll continue. I mean, the off season. I feel like the off season is where we shine, anyway. So that's where we have our fun breaking down everything, anyways. We are going to continue breaking down the playoffs, though, after round 3 ends. Which, I mean, round 3 could end tomorrow. That's what's so crazy. It could all be over really quick. But we'll do our breakdown of all the games there, and then we'll do our Stanley Cup final preview on the next show. Justin's going away to hot Atlanta, so enjoy yourself down there. Say hi to the Atlanta Thrashers.
Oh yeah,
I think that's where the Coyotes are going.
Oh man, maybe yeah.
Back to Atlanta.
It wouldn't surprise me. But it'd be funny though if they do go to Atlanta, right? So you look at it this way, right? So the old Winnipeg, who moved to the Winnipeg franchise that moved to Arizona.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
The Atlanta
I know where you're
franchise
going,
moved to Winnipeg, and now Arizona's moving back to Atlanta. So it's full circle.
Shoot, yeah, that would be funny. Maybe they could just swap. They just go,
There you
hey,
go.
actually, can we just like get our team back, and then we'll just. Yeah.
I'm sure Atlanta would love to have Blake Wheeler back and the rest of the
I
guys
mean, the
there.
best part is that wait, is Andrew Ladd still under contract with Arizona?
You know, he actually might be. You might be right.
Is he? Maybe he's not. Maybe he was. Is he?
But he was
UFA?
playing in Arizona this year, so I mean,
Yeah. Where did he
maybe
go?
Dustin Byfuglien comes back, plays another year in Atlanta, and get the old gang back.
Yes, there you go. He's willing to only come back to Atlanta. Boy, what a trip. Yeah, he was there. He's a UFA this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I mean, that would mean Andrew Ladd would get to go back to Atlanta, which I think that's where he was, right? Yeah, he was 2010-11 for one season. Remember, the Blackhawks won the cup, and then he was traded to Atlanta because they had
the dump salary.
They had no money. Yep, that was when they sent him and Byfuglien to Atlanta, and then the next year they became the Winnipeg Jets, and the rest is history.
So good.
The rest is history. All right, well, that's our show. You can find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Justin, enjoy game number 4. To our listeners, enjoy what's left of the playoffs, or of this round. There's plenty of playoffs left. Don't worry. Still a Stanley Cup final to go, but enjoy the rest of that. Let us know what you think on Twitter, and we will talk to you guys soon. See ya.